Today is a dark and overcast day in Cape Town. We'll have hardly any solar production, and it's foggy and there'll be no wind, at least for a few hours. And so we're going to need fossil fuel to help us. And which fossil fuel do we need? Well, we're still going to need coal for the foreseeable future. But in Southern Africa, there have been two massive gas offshore finds. One, northern Mozambique, where there's a war going on for control over that massive gas field, in my opinion. And secondly, off the coast of northwest South Africa. The Kudu field, which was discovered about 20 years ago, and more recently the Venus field, discovered by Total Energies, which is supposedly bigger than the Kuwait gas fields. And this will change the nature of energy in Southern Africa. I've heard that 1 gigawatt can be built in 18 months after the gas reaches shore. Eskom have taken 15 years to not produce 10 gigawatts of coal. There's something wrong with the coal in South Africa, and so old power stations like Matimba were designed to be able to deal with the kind of poor quality coal that we have in South Africa. But unfortunately, the Medupi and Kusile engineers and designers were not South Africans, and they didn't take account of the local coal conditions or many other conditions in South Africa. And so we sit with these problems, which people like myself already were warning about in 2010, and which Eskom discovered for themselves in 2013. I have those presentations, you can let me know, and I will refer you to them. And so, today, we need gas, LPG, which is methane is CH4, and LPG is C3H8. It's kind of 3 methane chains together. And the beautiful thing about LPG is you can compress it into liquid and transport a lot of it in a very small area. And at the Energy in Durban on Wednesday, I saw the beginnings of a new fuel cell, and I said to people, I'm really worried about hydrogen as a supply. Why don't they use methane? And they said, well, they're using LPG, which they could use methane, but with LPG you can store much more volume in a very small area, and then they will convert that LPG into hydrogen and then use it in the fuel cell, and there will be some CO2 emissions. So this is where we're going. We'll have a day today which is dark, overcast, low solar production. Of course, the sun's still shining above the clouds. We haven't worked out how to get the sun, we can make power in space, and we can probably beam it to Earth. And I had that dream long ago, but you'd have this laser in the sky, and the problem is if the laser wobbled a bit, let's suppose the laser hit 100 kilometers from Cape Town. If it wobbled a bit because of some reason, it could wipe out Cape Town. A great I think it was in a James Bond movie. Remember that James Bond movie set in South Korea, where the guy lasered the enemy, if you like, in that movie. So, you could have a laser from space, but who knows if it could ever work. But the point is that we do have gas right now. The nice thing about gas is that there's no ash, there's no NOx or SOx, or maybe very little. There's mercury and lead and other things from coal. And a gas power plant can start itself, which is beautiful. Many of the coal power plants or the nuclear power plants need external power stations to start them. So that creates a dependency. We don't have that dependency with a gas power station. So we need it. We have the so-called energy transition. It's a transition. It's not like at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon we're going to switch off coal, we're going to switch off nuclear, we're going to switch off gas. We're not going to do that. We're going to transition. So far, we have transitioned many times. And we transitioned to coal from wood, and then we transitioned from coal to oil. When that happened, we used more coal. Then we transitioned from oil to nuclear. When that happened, we used more coal and oil. Then we started transitioning to renewable energy and other energies, and we used more coal and more oil and more gas and more nuclear. So, it's not like we used any less of the previous. So we could transition to 80% renewable energy grid and still use the same amount of coal as we use today. I hope that doesn't happen like that, but it could happen, and it would be better for our future if that happens, and that the coal people clean up their act and put in the flue gas desulfurization and find ways to not have these massive amounts of waste and ash and other toxins going into the atmosphere. So my point today is that on a day when there's no solar irradiation and there's no wind, we need to have fossil fuel backup. And there is another option called biodigesters, biofuels, where we can make diesel from waste oil. And I've seen that happen at a friend of mine, and that's entirely possible. He ran his diesel car off that. There's a lot of people doing that. It's a good thing to do. Your exhaust fumes smell of chip oil, which is great. And then, of course, there's sewage mining, and there's methane in sewage. And so one can trap that gas. It's low pressure. And then you need a generator which can work with methane as opposed to working with LPG. So methane is relatively low pressure and LPG very high pressure. Okay, so we have alternatives. We have ways of solving the problem. We need to make it happen. We need to do it today. We need to start now, and we need to have a big vision. So coal people, come to the party. Oil people, come to the party. Gas people, come to the party. Nuclear engineers, come to the party. We need everybody. Solar people, come to the party. Wind people, come to the party. Biodigester people, come to the party. Fuel cell people, come to the party. Battery people, come to the party. There's all different kinds of batteries. Hydroelectric batteries, pumped storage batteries, all kinds of batteries. Then there's ocean currents, and then there's microhydro in rivers, and there's so many possibilities. So let's make this world more clean, more healthy, because if we make our external environment healthy, our internal environment will be healthy, and then we will think clean thoughts and eat clean food and drink clean water and breathe clean air, and our immunity will rocket, and we won't be so dependent on external drugs and little white pills that will take our problems away, when we can actually take our problems away in a different way where we clean up our environment. Enjoy the weekend if you're taking the weekend off. If you're not, enjoy the weekend, and see you soon.